It's Not My Job is the third episode of the second season of Full House. This is directed by Zwick. It's not one of my favourite episodes, but there are a lot of things in this, individual things, that I really quite liked. And I'll get to the main narrative, focusing on Jessie, in a moment, but the subplots, very briefly. Stephanie has a cavity and she has to go to the dentist to get a filling, and it's all about how she's scared of the dentist and doesn't want to go, and I completely relate. I hate the dentist. I hate going, and well, I'll explain briefly what happens with this. So there will be spoilers for this episode from this point on. The way that part of the story was handled involves Joey giving Stephanie a pep talk about courage and her courage hangy ball, which I thought was rather amusing. And honestly, it's still not enough to make me want to go to the dentist, but I think it helped to show that actually you can have the courage inside of you to overcome things that you're scared of, whether that's the dentist or anything else. And ultimately, I thought it was a nice way of handling that part of the story. The main narrative does focus on Jessie, but very briefly before I get in with that, I just want to say how adorable is Michelle. Being a huge Mary-Kate and Ashley fan, I love seeing Michelle grow up and seeing her having more and more involvement. And I don't know how many weeks or how much time passed between recording this episode and the previous two episodes of this season. I'd imagine not that much time, but she has a lot to say in this episode. She actually has lines, and it's adorable. And my favourite scene in the whole thing is when Jessie and Michelle are singing I Got You, Babe. It's just absolutely adorable, and I love it. The main narrative focuses on the fact that Jessie wants to quit the family business. He doesn't want to be an exterminator. He realizes that he's at a point in his career where he might be able to make a living from music, and since that's his dream, he wants to have a proper go at it. But he's very scared to tell his father. Of course, this does mean that we get Jesse's parents. We have Yvonne Wilder as his mother and John Aprea as his father, Irene and Nick, and I thought they were really likable characters. They worked really well in this episode, and I think his father reacted, I think, the way I expected. And this episode, I feel, is definitely aimed at people in his father's position. Also aimed at people in Jesse's position, I guess, to try and tell them, to encourage them to go for their dreams, that you can't just live your life in your parents' shadow, even if their dreams for you are beneficial. Sometimes you have to go after what makes you happy. But I think more than that, the message is most important for Jesse's father. And that is, you have to let your children be their own people. You have to let them live their own dreams and experience the world the way they want to. Of course, it's wonderful that his father built up this extermination business and wanted to pass it on to Jesse, but if that's not what Jesse wants, then it's not really fair to force him into that. I think it was handled pretty well. I feel like the narrative was a little dull at times. It wasn't that entertaining, and this is just a few scenes here and there, but generally, I'd say in the final third of the episode, once we really got to the heart of this, it became quite emotional, and it was rather interesting, and I think, very heartfelt, and the way it concluded, I thought, was very effective as well. Ultimately, it is a really good episode with some good bits here and there. As I said, though, it's not my favourite episode. It does slow down a bit. It's not the funniest, and there are times when it's maybe not the most emotional, but it does get there. It gets there in the end. It's Not My Job, all things considered. May not be a personal favourite, but it's still a pretty good episode.